Hey everybody, this is Jason Rogash. It is 1/20/2017. I just got done watching Donald Trump's inauguration speech. There's an old quote, and I'm not going to look it up, because if it's a wrong quote or I'm completely off base about what it's about, then I won't be able to use it and it'll lose its efficacy, and then I'll feel like, and then I'll just be disappointed. When fascism comes to America, it will be draped in a flag carrying a cross or a Bible. That's what that speech was. Donald Trump actually said in one part of the speech that God will bless us. God will protect us. God will protect America. This isn't because Donald Trump believes in God. I don't think Donald Trump gives a shit about God one way or another. I think this is for the masses and how stupid he thinks you all are. I think he thinks he looked in that crowd of people, he knows who his audience is and who voted for him, and he realizes you're a bunch of fat, middle-class white people who instead of educating yourselves and informing yourselves have just become more conservative and are looking for a benevolent dictator to make America great again, whatever that means. You want the blacks to be put in their place by law and order, and Latinos and poor people and anybody that's got any protesters. You want them to be shut the fuck up, and you want the military and the state to crack down on them, and you want them to go away. You want all the people who complain about this country and are warning about the serious cancers that are just engulfing this thing, and you want them to shut the fuck up, and with you go to Walmart and fill up their SUVs with ice and beer and soda and bulk hot dogs and drive to the lake and have a barbecue and completely have absolutely nothing to do politically with anything whatsoever other than voting, and have no opinion. Don't read the newspaper. You watch Fox News, but you really don't. You don't even pay attention enough to Fox News. You are and this is how Donald Trump looks at you. You are a sucker. He's from fucking New York, New Jersey. Okay? Three-card Monty. If anyone knows what three-card Monty is, go look it up. Donald Trump is a three-card Monty dealer, except for he's a billionaire three-card Monty dealer. He thinks you are... There's an old saying, if you don't know who's being conned in the room, you're the one being conned. And if you didn't figure out, watching a Donald Trump speech, who's being conned, you're being conned. Donald Trump is conning you. There is no making America great again. America was never great to begin with. He starts off with a false premise, therefore he can do whatever he wants to, because that premise, not only is it false, and maybe false is the wrong word, it's hollow, it's empty. Make America great again to what standard? It's a meaningless platitude. Obama was the fucking master at this. So Donald Trump is just an extension of Obama. This power structure. We saw this with his cabinet members, and they're all going to get in. Sessions, they just did, what was it, what's his name? Mattis today is now your defense secretary. You're going to see this country, and I'm going to stick to the speech. The speech was about patriotism, it was about God, and it was about hearkening back to a time in America where people actually thought that any of that shit was true. There are still 40% of this population, 45% of the population still believes in God. It still believes in the government's going to save them. It still believes that the military is a force for good. It still believes that cops don't kill black people, that there is no inherent racism. There is no institutional racism. Racial profiling doesn't exist. The Central Intelligence Agency doesn't go around and foment revolutions and kill people. They believe the military is all of that shit on CBS and television. They have swallowed all of the myths of American society 100%. And even though they're watching their school systems crumble around them, even though they're watching their infrastructure not be dealt with, they're watching air being polluted, they're watching people on television who said they were going to clean out the swamp, bring in even worse people. They don't. And I'm watching all these people in Washington in the inauguration, and I'm going, you all... if a nuclear bomb hit that motherfucking place at the Trump administration, it would have probably been the best thing. I mean, with all the ex-presidents and all the fucking people of power on that stage, that would have just been awesome if God would have, I would have then believed in God. Then I would have become a Christian. I would become I would have just said, I'm believing. I would have spent the rest of my life wandering the roads and the byways of America preaching the word of God, if that would have happened, if the inauguration would have. And I say that about every inauguration, by the way. I say that about every State of the Union. I've said that, I mean, every single time I'm watching the State of the Union for the last 20 plus years, I've watched State of the Union, whatever it's been. I always say, well, if we could just, if a meteor just came out of the goddamn sky! But that, of course, will never happen. So, but Trump is his speech was fascism light. This is God, and this is destiny, and this is hearkening back to a better time, and this is the military is going to save you, and law and order, and protecting our borders. And I would have no problem with if he ever talked about the core issues. Well, why are treating, and I'm going to leave you with this. I'm not going to go too deep because I'm going to do more detailed videos about some of these things in the next couple of days or weeks. What drives me crazy is what he really does at the end of the day is make America the victim. And he does this in the same way that he makes himself the victim. Do you remember when Rosie O'Donnell and he were going out? He called Rosie O'Donnell fat and ugly and stupid. All these really, really bottom of the barrel insults. Whereas Rosie O'Donnell goes on her show, she flipped her hair sideways and started doing this bad impression of Donald Trump, and it destroyed him because she's a stand-up comic. And there's an old thing about Bill Hicks. Bill Hicks would say, somebody, I think Bob Ryan was a writer for the Boston Globe, and he asked him, how do you control crowds so well? How do you deal with hecklers so well? And he said, I'm on the road 250 days a fucking year. I'm on stage every night for 250 nights a year. A heckler, really? I have all day to think I'm going to destroy a heckler. And that's what he is. He's a heckler, but he's a rich heckler, so he gets a lot of attention. What did he call nasty? What did he do to Rosie O'Donnell? Though my point is, what did he call her? She's a bully. She bullied him. He didn't bully her. She bullied him, which wasn't true. Which is completely ridiculous. What did he do with Hillary Clinton? Called her that, you're a nasty woman. She's a nasty woman. She's bullying him. She's the one that's nasty. He did this he became the victim. Donald Trump is always the victim. This is a mentality of manipulation. That's all it is. I don't know if anyone's ever been into a super unhealthy relationship, but a woman or a man will often play the victim. They're the victim of anything that ever happens in that relationship. Therefore, that relationship is never their fault, anything they do in that relationship. Therefore, it's always somebody else's fault because they're always being victimized. This is Donald Trump 101. He got caught on screen, on air, saying he grabbed women by the pussy. He has sexually assaulted women. He said the most crass, vile, horrible things about women, about black people, about Mexicans, about Muslims. And it's okay, because it's perfectly. I mean, that's what he is. He's a fascist. And if all of these code words that they're using make the border thing is most disturbing to me, because he is ignoring why all of the American corporations. He's ignoring the International Monetary Fund's issues with Mexico. What they did to Mexico, the neoliberal policies that destroyed Mexico. Instead, we're being victimized by other countries because we're subsidizing their military when it benefits us to subsidize their military so we can have a geostrategic position in the world. Somehow he doesn't see that, or does see that. No, I don't think he does see that, and I don't think it matters to him, because I don't think he's going to change anything. He actually claimed that Japan was taking advantage of us. Not in this speech, but in his previous speech, that Japan... Israel, he never mentions Israel. He's only mentioning more money to go into Israel. He only wants more money to fund settlers and more money to take down those evil Palestinians. But he's always claiming that somebody is victimizing us. We're helping Saudi Arabia too much. We sell them. They're like the third largest arms, the third or fourth in the world they spend on their military, to Saudi Arabia. He's got this idea that America is the victim, and he's doing it because he needed to get elected, and this is how you get elected, by making America appear weak. America is not weak. American workers are weak. American unions are weak. He's not mentioning strengthening up unions. He's bringing more jobs in industry, which means you're going to be taking a lower wage. Unless the government steps in and puts $15 an hour minimum wages, unless they do, you're going to be taking less money. He'll bring all the industry back as long as you work, instead of like what Obama did, instead of having to spend $20 an hour for a a job at General Motors or wanted to build a car. Now it's $15 an hour. That's what the bailout did. It doesn't protect workers. That's why Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, was bad and was bad for workers. Because if you worked for a corporation, they were reducing your hours below, I think it was 36 hours a week. So you weren't considered full-time, so you didn't have to have health care paid for. Which then allowed Walmart, Target, Toys R Us, Fred Meyer, Albertsons, name your corporation, and I'm talking about your food, Whole Foods, etc. These kind of places who have high people turnover, and other industries and other businesses, McDonald's, Burger Kings, the fast food restaurants, other national chain companies, big corporations, allowed them not to have to hire people at 40 hours. And what it did was as well, small businesses did the same thing. Nobody gets hired at full time anymore because we don't want to have to provide health care for our people. And one of the things that I'll make an argument is if you had nationalized healthcare, it would help every company. It would help the economy overnight because you would then take the healthcare burden off of a lot of these corporations who have had to spend money on healthcare. They wouldn't have to anymore. Their taxes would be raised, and it would actually benefit everybody if we had single payer. But anyway, I digress. The inauguration speech was simple. It was about making America great again, which is his speech, but essentially is tricking you into believing that America somehow has been victimized by the world, and now we're going to stop that victimization. America was victimized by its own country. It was victimized by its own politicians, by its own CEOs, by its own businesses, by its own military, by its own people. There has been no foreign influence in America that's destroyed America. We're not China. It's all been America. So when you hear Donald Trump talk about that, when he insists that somehow there is an outside opposing force to America that has led us to this point, because he leaves, it's one of the many things that he gets wrong, many things. He virtually gets everything wrong. But it's a major thing that he gets wrong. This country was not destroyed by any other than policies that were created by Americans for Americans. We weren't influenced by another country. We were influenced by our own country. And this greed will continue. Do you really think that the Secretary of Labor wants to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour and they've opposed it? Do you really think that you're going to get stronger workers' rights under Donald Trump? Or do you think what you're going to get is lower wages? Do you really think you're going to get something from somebody who's never advocated for the worker? He's never advocated for the average proletariat, hell, even the bourgeoisie. Do you really think that you're going to get that from him? You're not. And he's not even pretending that he's going to give it to you. All he's saying is, we're going to bring jobs back, we're going to bring corporations back, we're going to make America great again. It's completely meaningless. Because I don't know when America was great. I'm a pretty astute a pretty astute observer of American history, or at least I try to be as best I can. There was never a great time in America. It's if you're rich and you were paying higher tax. I don't know. But it's fascist talk is what it really is. It's what Hitler did, and it's what Mussolini did, and it's what dictators do. They remind you of how great things were before blank. Before question mark. God, don't you guys remember how great Ronald Reagan was? Ask the inner cities of America how great Reaganomics was for them. Ask the inner city how great Clintonomics were for them. Ask the poor people in the world, ask the poor people in America who build this country, who sweat, who go to work every day, who suffer, who pay the majority of the taxes. Ask if it was ever great. I mean, maybe the 50s, maybe even into the early 70s when people still, maybe that's what they're hearkening back to. But those days I'm 40. Those days are long. They didn't exist when I was a kid. The 90s were shit. I mean, the labor was being destroyed. Labor was being upended. I grew up in the 80s where you would see those, and I'm digressing here, but I would see those union commercials, vote the union label. I was watching Barbara Mandrell do union commercials. And now you don't see a union commercial. Only 7% of private labor in America is unionized. That's how you make America great again. You start from the bottom up. But Donnie Tawny Hands doesn't live from the bottom up. He's never had to make rent. He's never had to go to a job interview. He's never had to make a decision on do I eat today or do I pay my electrical bill? My car's broken down. I can't get to work, so I'll have to take the bus or the walk or whatever if there's a bus. He's never had to make those decisions. I can't afford the bus, so I have to walk 10 miles to work every day for the week until my car's fixed. He's never, ever in his life ever been faced with any of those problems, nor would he ever be faced with those problems. So that person's never going to have your best interest anyway. And he's never going to make America great again because America was never great for workers to begin with. My suggestion has been leave. I'm leaving. Many people, I would suggest anybody that's serious, get out of the country. The next 40 years of America are going to be, if it's probably going to be quicker than that. I would say maybe the next 10 years. It's going to be a bumpy ride. And there is no coming back from this because Donald Trump dragged this country so far to the right that, I mean, let's just pretend for a moment, God forbid, that something happens to Bernie Sanders. Who's the next liberal up? Who's the next socialist type independent candidate up? There's no movement in this country for that because this country isn't run like that. It's never been run like that. The struggle remains. The struggle continues. I take my hat off to the struggle. It's needed. It's wanted. I'll give money and time to it if I can. But the problem with it is America's always been structured in a way that there is no history of the left in this country. There's none. So very little. And so, I mean, post New Deal, there's very little. And Donald Trump is not, as a CEO or a president or the richest, the most powerful man, is going to be able to make things better for the average worker unless he taxes high. And he's doing the exact opposite things that you would need to do to create a stronger working class and stronger middle class. Closing the border isn't going to do anything. No wall is going to stop illegal immigration. And illegal immigration is not even our main problem. It's corporations not paying enough taxes and being considered human beings. That's a bigger problem. It's a bigger problem that we have a constant battle for Fortune 500 companies to pay a livable wage to their workers. That's the problem. But those things aren't addressed with Donnie Tiny Hands, and they won't be for 4 years. And in that process, people can fight and people can do what's necessary. People can rebel and do those things, and I hope they do, and God bless them and good luck. And at the end of the day, Donnie Tiny Hands is a fascist. He believes in a strong military, law and order, and strong business and corporate power. If you look up what Mussolini's definition of fascism was, and if you look it up in the original Italian, it's beautiful. But it's corporate and state merger. That's what you have with Donald Trump. You see that with his cabinet. Walmart, Amway, Exxon. God, I'm missing so many companies. I'm a little bit tired. You have venture capitalists. You have hedge fund guys. You have people who run Hardee's and Arby's. You have people who run, they are now the state. Do you understand what fascism, do you understand what Mussolini meant? Betsy DeVos is a fascist. What's his name? Rex Tillerson is a fascist. That's what Donald Trump is. He's a fascist. So just remember, when fascism comes to this country, it will be wrapped in a flag, talking about patriotism constantly, and how Donald Trump even used the flag terminology. We all of us, whether or not we're born in the inner city, basically he should have just said squalor, but he didn't. But if the inner city of Detroit to somewhere in Nebraska, we all look up at the sky and we all look up at the flag, and that same beautiful flag. He's crass. He's Walmart. He's a salesman. He's Vince from Chop Wow. Remember Vince from Sham Wow? Not Chop, he did the Chop one too. Remember Vince? Remember that guy? That's who Donald Trump is. Donald Trump is Vince from Sham Wow. He'll say whatever the fuck it takes for you to buy what he's selling you. Climb over his dead mother to fuck his sister for $1. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.